Hello viewers, greetings to you all, students, teachers, school heads, parents and all other stakeholders of education. Let me begin with a word of thanks to Madam Vijaya Lakshmi Manerika, the Director of Global Vision School, obviously for inviting me to speak to you all. I say speak to you all, but in absence of all of you. We are going through a very critical period because of coronavirus. Almost the whole world is, going through problems because of coronavirus. And so even if I wanted to have a direct interaction with you, a face-to-face interaction, right now that's not possible. Maybe we can leave it, for future. Well, friends, when I was asked to come and talk, obviously I was excited about it, but I would have loved to have you in front of me. Anyway, I take it that all of you are following me, and in case you feel that this is not a dialogue, yes, because a dialogue requires the presence of at least two persons, and here I am alone talking to you all. If you have any questions, any points to make, any points to add, feel free, to write to Madam Manerika, so that, sometime in future, we can consider all those questions and all those points that you have. I must also offer my compliments to Madam Manerika and her team for organizing this novel, I call it novel, very innovative kind of, project. When I was asked to come, obviously I was wondering as to what I should talk. Yes, true, my subject is English, and the title of my presentation is Focus on English. But I said, I thanked Madam, I offered my compliments to her, but I also want to, offer my congratulations to all students associated with this school or associated with education in general. What are these compliments for? Those who are in the 10th exam, have completed their exams and are now anxiously waiting for their results. Others perhaps have been directly promoted without exams. Now it appears that I'll have to talk to you, assuming that you are all in front of me. I was talking about you are getting promoted to higher classes without undergoing any exams. Because this is a very critical period that the world has been going through. And so there was no other option. And that actually reminds me, of an athlete or a singer who has prepared thoroughly for giving performance, but the event is cancelled. So all of you had prepared yourself for exams, but there was no exam, and you were promoted. I know you are happy about it, and you are also not very happy about it, but it can't be helped. I wish you all the best, for whatever you want to do in life. Now, coming to, the topic that is focus on English. Let me begin with a story. I'm sure all of you like stories. A man once claimed that he had taught his parrot 3 languages. A man once claimed that he had taught his parrot 3 languages. The news spread like wildfire. Excited, number of people rushed to his house, expecting to see the performance. They waited and waited, but the parrot didn't oblige, didn't utter a single sound, a single word in any of the 3 languages. Disappointed, the people who had gathered there, took the man to task and called him a liar. The man said, "Hang on, I'm not a liar. You did not hear me properly. What I said? I said, I taught. I never said the parrot learned." Oh, what is the moral of this story? Well, when teachers tell stories, of course, there is always a question at the end, that what is the lesson that you have learned from this? Obviously, the story tells you about the gap between teaching and learning. There can be teaching and teaching. There can be even over teaching, but there is no guarantee that there will be learning. Because teaching doesn't always result directly into learning. Students may learn, may not learn. This is a very common experience. Well, teachers teach the same thing to all students in the class, 20, 25, 30, 40, 50, whatever number. But do all students, learn the same? Take the same? No. You know the reasons. I'll not go into those reasons. The point I'm trying to make is that there is always a gap between teaching and learning, in spite of all the research that has been held all over the world. And continuous efforts are being made to bridge this gap, so that teaching should result in learning. So coming to the topic, focus on English. I'm going to look at this from the point of view of 3 questions. Yes, why do we learn English? Or why do we study English? Number 2, what do we study? What do we learn? And of course, third is, how do we study? So let us begin with the first. Why do we learn English? Well, we have our own languages. Our mother tongue is there, our first language is there. In India, of course, there are people, majority of them actually, have not only 1 or 2, but many times 3 or 4 languages. So we already have 2 or 3 languages, and why add this? Well, I'm sure you all know the answer. The answer is because English is an international language. Because English makes available, so many things in life, vertical mobility as they call it, that you want to go upwards in social structure, in financial structure, you need English. You want to operate at the national level, you need English. You want to operate at the international level, you need English. So for a number of reasons, you need English. You should have no doubt. Nobody has any, perhaps here has any doubt as to why we need to learn English, why we need to study English. Now, the problem is it for doing a deep study of literature that we turn to English? Maybe some of us will learn literature in later life. So we're talking about why do we learn English, or why do we study English? Some people might say so that we would be able to read and study English literature. Yeah, all right. But how many of us are going to specialize in the study of English literature? Imagine. Yes, just imagine, I said, that 100 students have passed 10th. And how many of them will go to science and commerce and arts? Let us say equal, though in reality it is not. But let us imagine that 33 students, or actually 30 students go to commerce, 30 students go to science, and rest of them go to arts. And 10 of them, just drop out. Now out of these 30 students who have gone to arts, again, some of them will specialize in economics, in geography, in political science, in Marathi, in Hindi, Sanskrit. There is no end to that. In short, finally, only 3 or 4 students out of 100 will specialize in English literature. So let us not bother. That field is always open. But basically, we want to learn English not because of this, not because of literature, but because of language itself. We need to develop our language, English language competency. Because English language competency is something that we all require for higher education, for better jobs, for operating at the national level, international level, and all that. Now, you are students, and maybe your immediate goal is to pass the exam. Yes, to pass the exam you need English. But that is not the long-term goal. What is the long-term goal? Long-term goal is, permanent goal, is to have English language competency. That you should have confidence in using English. So that is what we are learning English for. But what do we mean by learning English? What is it that goes into English studies? Is it just the textbook? Oh, textbook is only a means, only an instrument. That is not the end product. When later in life you go for higher education or you go for, job interviews, they will obviously see as to how you use English. They are not going to ask you what textbooks you read, what was your first lesson and what was your second lesson. They are not going to ask you that. What are they going to test? Your ability of using English effectively. And the textbook is a means. That's not the end. The end is English language competency. That you should always be able to be effective English user. If that is the goal, obviously our focus has to be on the development of basic language skills. And what do you mean by basic language skills? I'm sure all of you know. The first skill is listening skill. Second is reading skill. Third is, listening, speaking, reading and writing. Now let us go into some details of each of these. Listening skill. Obviously you will say, oh, what is so special about it? I'll tell you what is so special about it. Let me give you, a very short task. What is that? Do you like music? I'm sure all of you do. What kind of music? Classical music? Oh, that's not, for everybody. Light music? Yes. Film music? Yes. Marathi, English, Hindi, whatever language, that's not important. I'm sure you like songs, film songs, right? Drama songs. Sure? Okay. Now imagine in your mind just any of those songs that you like most. Your most favorite song. Okay? Have you thought of it? Don't change it later. Alright, good. Now take a plain paper and pen, right? And write down the entire text of the psalm. What has happened? Oh, how many of you can do it? I'm sure some of you can do it, but not all. Why? Do you know the reason? The song that you have heard, yes, heard hundreds and thousands of times, and still you are not sure about all the words. Only some of you are. You know the reason? You feel that you have been listening, but actually you have not been listening. What you have been doing is hearing. Understand the difference between hearing and listening. There was one small boy who always used to play, and his mother was not happy. So she took him to task and gave, as all mothers do, right? She gave a long sermon, a long lecture, and at the end of it she asked, "So, little one, is this all clear? Have you been listening?" The boy said, "Mama, I have heard you haven't been listening." You understand this? Of course, Mama was much smarter, and so she understood that the boy was kidding. The point that I am trying to make is, hearing is basic. If you are not able to hear, obviously you cannot do listening. But people stop at that, and that is one of the basic problems of not getting English language competency. Let me give one more example. Now there is so much of exposure to all of you. In my time, when I was a child, we did not have so much of exposure. You have television, you have films, you have CDs, you have VCDs, you have laptops. Well, so many things are available. On your mobile also you can get all those things. Now imagine that is a good English movie in a theatre in Nashik, in your town, and you decide to go. You have good background of English. You come from a good English medium school, and you will go there with your friend to watch the film. You buy the ticket, take your seats, the film starts, and when the actual film starts, after 10 minutes or so, you ask your friend, "What did she say just now?" And your friend says, "Keep quiet, don't disturb me," as if he has understood. Actually, neither you have understood nor he has understood. Have you ever asked this question to yourself as to why this happens? Why can't you understand this? Though you have studied English for 10 years, 12 years, you have had very good teachers, you have had very good textbooks, you have had very supportive parents, you have worked hard, and yet you are not able to understand. You are not able to understand basically because what you do there is hearing and not listening. What is the difference between hearing and listening? Hearing is basically only a physical activity, but listening is a mental activity. The mind is involved. Consciously you are doing it. And when you are doing something consciously, that is going to stay with you. Now, you ask any friend of yours who has been learning classical music about his or her experience with a guru. When this student goes to a guru and says, "Well, I want to learn classical music," the guru says, "Very good, you are welcome, but on one condition." And what is the condition? That you will be only listening to music for first 2 years, 3 years. The greater the guru, the greater is the gap. 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you are not allowed to open your mouth. Why? Because the guru says the first thing in learning music is to give training to your ears. Unless your ears are trained properly, you are not allowed to open your mouth to sing. Now, if you are able to understand what is in tune and what is not in tune, then it's okay. So, what does this example tell us? That listening is an activity which is done deliberately, consciously, purposefully, with effort, and it involves understanding. Listening involves understanding. Remember, my friends, unless you are a good listener, you cannot hope to be a good speaker. It's all right to talk about this skill and that skill, but all these skills are interlinked, interrelated. That unless you are a good listener, I repeat, you cannot hope to be a good speaker. So what are we learning English for? And what is it that we are learning? We are learning English not just because we have to pass this exam or that exam. Not because we have to score these many marks and those many marks. That is there. But the real reason is you want to improve your English language competency. You want to have a command, a good command over the 4 skills of English language. Now, if you are asked to do the same thing with your first language, you can do it easily. But that doesn't happen with English. It is because English is not our first language. It is our second or third language. And so, unless you make conscious efforts, you cannot hope to have a good command over the skill of listening and the skill of speaking. And then let us come to the skill of speaking. Now, if you were present in front of me, I would have asked you to do this job for me. But anyway, now I'll do it for you. I have already said, unless you are a good listener, you cannot hope to be a good speaker. But what are the major aspects of speaking? What is the first thing they require if you want to be a good speaker? That we have already said. You have to be a good listener. But there are so many things involved. First, you have to have a good command over the language. What do you mean by having a good command over the language? Thorough knowledge of grammar? Grammar. And when people, just get the word grammar, they get scared. You'll be surprised to know, not only you and me here in India, but people in England, people in America, where English is the first language, they are also scared of grammar. Everybody is scared of grammar. There have been interesting stories about this scare of grammar, this fear of grammar. There are interesting, plays, dramas, films based on this. How people are terrified of grammar. Actually, this is all exaggeration. Grammar is not that very difficult. And grammar is not something that you have to learn all very consciously and all that. It becomes, if you learn it unconsciously, nothing like that. Come on, tell me. Can I challenge your knowledge of your first language? Can I challenge your knowledge of Marathi or Hindi or Gujarati or Punjabi? No. Why? You'll say, sir, we have been speaking it, we have been using it. Since childhood. From the time when we started speaking, we have been using it. But do you have any conscious knowledge of Marathi grammar? If I ask you to give me an example of Bhavya Prayog, if I ask you to give me the Vyutpatti of this and that, will you be able to do it? You'll say, what is that? Same is the problem with English. By that I mean, if you ask a native speaker of English as to how many vowel sounds are there in English and how many consonant sounds are there in English, he'll say, what? I don't know. What I mean by this, that you may not have a conscious knowledge of this, but you have an unconscious knowledge. Now, if you go on go on using English and polishing English, improving English, grammar automatically follows. If you feel that you will take a grammar book and learn and then you start speaking, that day will never appear. That day will never arrive. So grammar has its importance, not that it is not important. And in your textbook you will find, any textbook, class 9, class 10, 11, 12, any textbook, that grammar is there, but it is hidden. Grammar is there, but it is concealed. Grammar is there, but it is implicit. And that implicit knowledge of grammar helps us. So command over the language obviously means command over that grammar, but unconscious command over, grammar. But command over language is one thing, but that's not enough. Well, next thing of course here is pronunciation. What is pronunciation? Look at the word I am saying. The verb is to pronounce, but the noun is pronunciation. Now, with Marathi there should be no problem. With Hindi, there is some problem. With Urdu, there are still more problems. English, many problems. What I say, nobody understands. What they say, I don't understand. A short while ago, I was talking about the skill of listening. And that time I said that you have to train your ears. As a singer has to give ear training, a user of language also needs to have ear training. And that ear training helps you in learning pronunciation. True that Americans' pronunciations are different from British pronunciations. British pronunciations are different from Australian pronunciations. Australian pronunciations are different from Indian pronunciations. Nothing wrong about it. Nothing bad. Do we speak Marathi the same way? All of us living in Maharashtra? How do people in Vidarbha use Marathi? And Marathwada Marathi? And Kolhapuri Marathi? Satara Marathi? There is nothing wrong and nothing bad about it. Each has its own variety and that's fine. Same is the case with English. So we don't have to feel ashamed. We don't have to feel ashamed of not knowing right pronunciation. But we should know what is the standard one. What is the accepted one. And that, should be our aim. In Britain also, I don't know how many of you are aware, England is geographically smaller than even Maharashtra. Population, of course, they can never compete with us. So, even in England, you have the Welsh variety, Scottish variety, British variety, so many varieties are there. Cockney English and this English and that English. So there is nothing wrong in that. Now what we have to know, our textbooks help this way. Good dictionaries, good pronunciation books help us this way. Good programs on BBC, good programs on Voice of America, good programs on Indian radio and television, they also help us in learning good pronunciation. A good pronunciation is necessary. Acceptable pronunciation is necessary so that you are accepted everywhere in the world. Third point is that of vocabulary. What do you mean by vocabulary? By vocabulary we mean a stock of words, a treasure of words, right words at the right place. Many times we have problem that I want to speak in English, but I don't know what is the word for this, what is the word for that. That happens with everybody. It's not abnormal. It's not something that happens only with you and me. It happens with everybody in the world. But gradually, we can go on increasing this stock of words, this vocabulary. That here, of course, you can make conscious effort. Every day you can add into your vocabulary. How do you add that? If you depend only on your textbook, that will never happen. You need to go beyond the textbook. There is so much of English around you. From home you come to school. On the way itself, there are so many signboards on your right, on your left. This is only one example I am giving. But why only talk about these signboards? You have a newspaper at home, you have television at home, you have so many means. Actually, you learn English through all these means. As you learn English from your teacher and from your textbook, you also get an opportunity of learning English, from all these means. So, keep your mind open, keep your eyes open, keep your ears alert, and you will get, words and words and words. Right? There is no end to that. Well, next is voice quality. Each one of us is born with some voice quality. And we can't really have any control over it. We can't change it. But we can make an effective use of it. I'll give an example. That great hero, Amitabh Bachchan, when he was trying to get a role, in films, initially he was rejected by almost everybody. Why? Because he did not have that image of a typical film hero. But in spite of that, he succeeded. Not only succeeded, but he went to the top. And he has been at the top for the last 30, 40 years. What has made this possible? It is because of his voice quality. He did not have the looks of a typical chocolate hero of Hindi films, but he had that delivery, he had that voice quality. Same is the case with Om Puri, same is the case with the man that died last week, Irfan Khan. They did not have the looks, but they had that voice quality. So keep in mind that whatever voice quality you have, you can make the best of it. And that you have to, take care of. Next is politeness. Unfortunately, we typically in Maharashtra are known to be very rude when we speak in English and all that. Now, English is a very soft language from that point of view. It's a language of people who are very, very polite. And so politeness is very important. Now that reminds me of so many stories as to how a liftman, refused to stop the lift, the floor that the man wanted, because the man did not use the word please. He only said 7th. And the man refused to stop. He said, stop at 7th floor, please. Then alone he would stop. In England, in the city buses, there are no conductors. There is only a driver. The driver collects money from you and drops you at a place. And when your stop comes and you tell him that you want to get off here, he stops the bus, opens the door, because you can't open it. He operates it. He opens the door, you get off, but he stops. You know what for? He wants you to say thanks. He wants to say thank you. No, language goes with its culture. Language cannot go without culture. As Marathi has Maharashtra culture behind it, English has its British culture behind it, American culture behind it. And you can't have language without culture. We have been looking at the various aspects of the skill of speaking. One of the important aspects is persuasiveness. Now, all children are fully aware of the importance of this skill. Imagine at home, you want something from your father, but it's not so easy. So you talk to your mother. You try to persuade her, you try to convince her, change her mind. Maybe you want permission to go for a picnic with your friends. Maybe you want to buy this or buy that. Or maybe you want to go for a movie with your friends. And you have to persuade your mother. Now that is a very special skill that every language user requires. Now even if you go for a job requirement, job appointment, interview, you know what happens? They ask you as to why should we select you? You have to tell, you have to convince them, you have to persuade them. So persuasive skill is very, very important. The language skill to be a good, effective speaker. You know how politicians try to persuade voters. You know how trade union leaders try to persuade, the workers. Right? So in every field of life, in every branch of life, you need, this skill of persuasion, this skill of convincing people. If you go into marketing, all marketing is actually about persuasion, changing the mindset, changing the habits of people and all that. Same is the case with your tone of voice. Now every language has its own patterns of, pitches, patterns of tones. And every language, when you learn a language, it's not just learning its grammar. It's not just learning, words, but it's also learning the tone of voice. As to what kind of tone you have to use. Now, it's not easy. You have to make again special efforts. Actually, for want of time, I can't go into the details here. But we have tone of voice in Marathi, Hindi and all that. Now, when you are asking a question, how do you ask a question? And when you have to write a question, how do you write a question? When you write a question, the punctuation mark. At the end of all that, you put a question mark. So in writing it's okay, but when you are speaking, if you want, what is your name? Now that's a question. But do you say, what is your name, question mark? No. My name is John, full stop. Do we speak like that? No. The way I say it, should make clear that I am making a statement. The way I say it should make clear that it's a question. The way I say it should make it clear that it's a request. The way I say it should make it clear that it's a command. That command is different from a request, and a request is different from a command. And you don't have to say it that it's a request or it's a command. The tone should make it clear. Right? So, tone of voice is anything important. Clarity. Now, if you are clear about what you are saying, obviously that should get reflected in your speech. And so, a speaker has to be clear with his thoughts, with his ideas, and then alone that clarity will get reflected in his or her speech. Same is the case with precision, accuracy. If you are not sure about what you are talking, obviously people are not going to bear with you. People are not going to take it, just like that. Knowledge of the subject or information, of course, is basic. Now, if you know, then of course you have a lot of material to talk about. But you don't know, you don't have information. How long can you go on talking? So, if you want to talk about cricket, you have to have knowledge of cricket. If you want to talk about films, you have to have knowledge of films. If you want to talk about music, you should be able to, get good knowledge of that. And that knowledge becomes basic when you are talking. Same is the case with confidence. Confidence? How does one get it? Where does one get it? Are there any vitamin capsules and all for that? No. Confidence comes over a period of time. Using language. Using language again and again gradually develops confidence about the language in you. Next, of course, is animation or liveliness. Now, we all talk, but unless our speech is lively, unless our speech has some life in it, nobody is going to take interest in that. If it is dull, boring and all that. Who will use that? Are you getting my point? I was talking about the tone. Well, a short while ago. You know, there is an interesting, expression in English. Monotone. You know what is monotone? Mono means single. So monotonous means something that is said in single tone, and that becomes boring. Same is the case with this animation. If you don't bring in life into your speech, if you don't bring life into what you are saying, it has to have vitality, it has to have that, liveliness, then alone it becomes effective. And finally, of course, appropriate language. I'm sorry, my friends, no grammar book can teach you appropriateness. No grammar book, covers this. Because grammar is all mechanical. But if you want to be an effective speaker, effective user of English, you have to learn, something about appropriateness. What do I mean by appropriateness? Let me give an example, an anecdote, an actual experience of mine. Very long time ago, I was in Hyderabad doing a postgraduate diploma, at the Central Institute of English at Hyderabad. One fine morning, while I was going to the library, I happened to meet my British teacher. And like a typical student, I greeted him and said, "Good morning, sir." He stopped me. He said, "What did you say just now?" Sir, I said, "Good morning, sir." "Sir?" "You said sir?" I said, "Yes, sir, I said sir." "Oh, am I so old?" No, sir, you are not old." Actually, he was. But some people don't like to accept that they are old. I said, "No, sir, you are not that old." "Then why did you call me sir?" "Sir, because you are my sir." He said, "See, in England we don't use the word sir this way." Then sir, how do we use it? Number one, sir is a designation given by the king or queen. Sir Newton, Sir Attlee, Sir Attenborough, that kind of sir. Secondly, when you go shopping, right, the salesman asks you, "What can I do for you, sir?" Right? Now, we are not in a shopping context. I am your teacher, you are my student. I said, "Then, but how should I address you?" He said, his name was Mr. Tong, Tongue. And you know how he used to introduce himself? By pulling out his tongue. And he said, "Just call me Mr. Tong." I said, "Okay, sir. Next time when I meet you, I'll greet you as, 'Good morning, Mr. Tong, sir.'" He was a great man, very jovial. Look at that, from sir to Mr. Tong. 20 years later, I was in England for a year. And in the meanwhile, Mr. Tong had died. But I happened to meet his wife, whom I knew well. And when I met her, obviously, I shared this experience with her. And you know what she said? She said, "That happened 20 years ago. You said, 'Good morning, sir.' But Mr. Tong corrected it and said that you should say, 'Good morning, Mr. Tong.' But had he been alive today, he would have asked you to call him Ray. 'Good morning, Ray.' Look at the change. 'Good morning, sir.' 'Good morning, Mr. Tong.' And 'Good morning, Ray.' Oh, from formal to informal. You get my point? Now, will that work in India? No. When I returned from England and rejoined by my duties in the college, just on the second day, a clerk from my college office brought one student to me and complained that the student insulted me. He said, why? What has happened? The clerk said that he is not calling me sir. Look at that. Here in India, the clerk, I am not underestimating him. He also has his status. But the clerk was expecting that the student should call him sir. And there in England, they don't want to be addressed as sir. Now this is a cultural difference. I am not trying to suggest that whatever they do, we have to copy it here. Culturally, we have our own problems. Culturally, they have their own problems. So what is all right there is not necessarily all right here. But when I talk about appropriateness, you have to think of that context, where you are. There is one more interesting experience of mine in England. In my first week, I wanted to meet the head of the School of Education. So I asked the porters, well, can I have an appointment with Professor Dr. Patricia Broadfoot? The fellow didn't understand a word. I thought it was because of my accent. But accent was not a big problem. He didn't understand. Who is this Professor Dr. Patricia Broadfoot? I repeated, oh, you mean, say it again? I said, I want to meet Professor Dr. Patricia Broadfoot. Oh, Tricia! You want to meet Tricia? Well, I didn't know that the head of the institution would be called Tricia with the first name, and that was shortened first name. But that was quite normal in UK. No, that's not normal in India. In India, we have our own systems. We have our own, ways, cultural means of doing that, and we have to remember that, to keep in mind. So what is all right in one context may not be all right in the other context. What is appropriate in England may not be appropriate in India. So using English in Indian context, using English in British context, using English in American context is not the same. You have to think of appropriateness. Appropriate, for the context, appropriate for the topic, appropriate for the time, appropriate for the relationship. You have a common experience. If at home you shout, parents take you to task. In your classroom, if you shout, your teachers take you to task. And what do they say? Oh, behave yourself. You are not on the street. You are in a classroom. At home, parents take you to task. Why? They say this is not a street, you are at home and you have to talk properly. So appropriateness is something very important. Though if you have to want a good speaker, you have to remember all that. Now, same can be said about reading and writing skills. For want of time, I will not go into details of that, but just raise some basic questions. Reading. Why do we read? Is related to what do we read? And what do we read is related to how do we read? Let us take an example. You want, to read for pleasure, or you want to read for information. If you want to read for pleasure, what will you read? What will you read? Railway timetable? No. You want to read for pleasure, you will read telephone directory? No. That is for information. But pleasure, you have storybooks, you have novels, you have plays, you have poems, and all that. They are meant for pleasure. So, depending on what is the purpose of your reading, you pick up the text, and then on that is based how the manner of reading, right? Same can be said about writing. As to what are you writing for? Writing for your exam? Writing for your classroom assignment? Writing for your school project? Then you have to think about it seriously. But you are just writing a simple note to your friend. You can be very informal, right? That reminds me of an example of that great dramatist George Bernard Shaw. He said that when I had to address 10,000 people in front of me, I have to be very careful about each and every word I say. But when I am at home, I can be careless. Same is the case with written English. That when you are writing a simple note, well, you can be careless. But when you are writing something serious, you have to be very careful. I don't know, well, about you, but I remember my own school days when, well, we started learning. Well, our teachers, well, said that writing is a matter of discipline and you have to follow a discipline. And he would give an example. And imagine you have been given a blank paper. You have to write. What is the first thing that you will do? First thing? Students gave different answers. Some said, I'll write Om. Some said, I'll write this prasanna, that prasanna. Teacher rejected all those answers and said, the first thing that you have to do when you are to start writing is to keep a margin. To keep a margin. Margin? What is that? You will say, sir, we no longer write, we write only on the tab, on your laptop and all that. True, nothing wrong in that. But then the laptop takes care of this. Tab takes care of this, iPad takes care of this. But when you are writing on paper, because you have to that. Why should we keep a margin? For a number of reasons. One reason is if it is to be filed, we should be able to read properly. Number two, if you have to make changes, there should be some space somewhere to make changes, right? And all that. So writing is a matter of discipline. And if you write in discipline, with good handwriting, legible handwriting at least, it may not be very effective and all that, but at least legible handwriting, all these things are important. So your handwriting speaks for your personality, your syntax there, your grammar, your organization, what contents, presentation style, all these things come in exams. If you are careful as to how you are writing your answers. Yes. Now, question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. Now, even the board exams, CBSE or state board, whatever board exam you are giving, they expect that when you are starting with a new question, leave the page and start with a new page. What for? So that the examiner who is going through your answer, assessor who is going through your script should not get confused, and you should not suffer because of that. It's a small thing, but these small things count in the final. Now, if you are yourself not able to read what you have written, how do you expect the examiner to read? So, your handwriting has to be legible. It should be readable. It should be easy on the eye. So, be careful about it. So, we talked about listening skill, we talked about speaking skill, we talked briefly about reading and writing skills also. But in addition to that, of course, there is something called body language. For example, your personal appearance. Now, you are giving an interview, imagine, or you are being interviewed for admission for higher course and all that. How you should go there? In what form? Well, because first impression is very important. How you look and all that. So, personal appearance. But personal appearance doesn't mean you can't increase your height just because you are going for an interview. You don't have to. You don't have to worry about your height. You don't have to worry about, unless you are applying for police department post or army post and all that. In other words, I always give an example. I remember once a guest was brought in our college, and so many good things were said about him. And the man insisted, when he was asked to speak, to make use of the podium. But hardly anybody could see him because the man was so short. But he insisted that he would speak only from the podium. So he was a guest. He said, okay. And people are worried as to what this man is going to say. Why have they brought him and all that. But you believe me, when he started speaking, he was such a great speaker. Such an excellent command over English and Marathi and Sanskrit and all that, well, everybody forgot. Well, all those things about his height and all that. So don't worry about how you look, how short you are, or how tall you are, or how weak you are. These things do not count. What counts is your confidence. What counts is your confidence, how you are able to, face the situation, how you are able to make use of language and all that. Now, personal appearance, I have said, in the same way, you can talk about posture, gestures, facial expressions and all that. Now, when you are speaking, obviously your face should go along with that. Now, if you say seriously, I am going to tell you a joke, nobody should laugh. Who will say, why are you telling a joke then? Don't tell us. No, if a joke is to be said, it has to be done in that manner, right? If you're talking about serious things, be serious. So facial expressions and what you are talking should match with each other. Remember that. Yes, just some of the things that you can keep in mind about facial expressions and all that, body language, right? And all that. Now, obviously you are going to ask me that final question. Sir, it is all right to talk about development of skill of listening and skill of speaking and skill of reading and skill of writing. But how does one go about it? How do you do it? Well, let me tell you, in a very different way. Maybe some of you or most of you know swimming. No? Okay. Riding a bicycle? Oh, bicycle is outdated now. Riding a bike? Yes, we can. Good. How does one learn riding a bicycle? How does one learn swimming? One learns swimming through swimming. Riding a bicycle, riding a bike, by riding a bicycle. You don't learn without that, right? So in the same way, if you want to be an effective user of English, effective speaker of English, effective listener of English, what you have to do? Do lots of listening, do a lot of speaking, do a lot of reading, do a lot of writing. So it's only by using language you will learn one day how to be an effective user of English. Not that, if you keep waiting that from 1st January 2021 that is going to happen. No, that is not going to happen like that. Well, it will happen tomorrow itself if you resolve, if you decide, if you are determined, you can do it. All of you can do it, can become effective listeners, speakers, readers and writers. And what else do you want? What else your madam wants? What else your teachers want? What else your parents want? All of them you want you to be effective user of English. And if you become effective user of English, I am sure not only you will be happy, but your teachers, your principal, your parents, everybody will be happy. All right. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you. In your absence, I was talking to you. I know. Maybe someday in your presence, I'll come and talk to you. Right?